I think I'm live. Hey everyone, my name is Jocelyn, founder of the Vagina Doc, and you are listening to another episode of Real Talk with the Vagina Doc. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about whether or not your vulva can do tricks. And basically, the title of this episode is Pretty is What Pretty Does, and 3 things you should know about your vulva. If you were on the live training or the live video, comment live. If you watch this over the replay, comment replay. So, when we think of pretty, who does not want to be pretty? I mean, for as long as I remember, I've always cared about how I looked. It is sort of transitioned from caring what other people thought about me versus what I thought about me. Now I more care about how I feel versus how other people feel. But at the end of the day, I think it's pretty global that people just want to feel pretty. Even when I'm working out or hiking, I want to look good because when I feel like I look good, I feel better. But what is pretty? And when I think of pretty, almost instantly I think of the memory in 11th grade English with Mrs. Coach Alone. I think it was a Shakespeare or Jane Eyre, like a Emily Bronte book or Shakespeare. And the quote was, "Pretty is what pretty does." And Mrs. Coach Alone always said that. And that made me think a lot more deep. I thought a lot more about the definition of what is pretty. And it doesn't just mean what someone looks like. Pretty isn't just what someone looks like. It's what you do and what kind of person you are. So this is pretty important for the vulva. Hey, Sarah. Oops, sorry, Siri. Yeah, this is really important for when we're thinking about our vulva because, people can consider a lot of crazy stuff like labioplasties and all sorts of vaginal rejuvenations. Marketing on the internet can be dangerous and could really influence our definitions like pretty and how we feel about ourselves. So I think that when it comes to our perception of our vulva, a lot of the negativity we feel around it isn't just because of what it looks like. It's the lack of understanding of what it is and what it does and our lack of control over it. So before I dive into the 3 tricks your vulva can do, let me just explain what the basics of the vulva is. So I have a vulva here, and the vulva is basically the face of the perineum being the area between the vaginal opening and the anus. And the vulva contains the genital structures, but also contains other stuff. So let me just walk you through the main things. So muscle-wise, or before I get there, I jumped to muscles because it doesn't show the labia. But what this doesn't show are the labia majora and the labia minora. That's the lips of the vulva. The labia majora is the area that grows hair. The outer lips and the inner part are the labia minora. What you see here are the underlying muscles. So these are layer 1 muscles of the 3 layers of the pelvic floor. And you have ones that are like this, that line the pelvis, and that's the bulb or the ischiocavernosus muscle. You have one on each side. Then you have like a hood, and these are underneath the labia, and they're on either side, and that's the bulbocavernosus. And then you have these that go across here. That's the superficial transverse perineum on the right side and on the left side, and the perineal body in the middle. And then you have this circular muscle here, which is called the external anal sphincter, the outer portion of the anus complex, the muscular complex. Those are the main muscles that we have control over in the outer layer of our pelvic floor, which is part of the vulva. And they contract. We can contract them. There's also smooth muscle of the vaginal lining, and we don't necessarily have control over those. Then we also have the clitoris, which is so small here, but it actually goes internal and is a lot bigger than what most people know it to be. And then it has a hood, a protective hood, kind of like a sweatshirt hood. That's the clitoral hood. And then you have the small hole here. That's the urethra, so where urine comes out. And then the hole here is the vaginal opening. And then you all know what this backdoor hole is. So 3 different holes of the vulva. Other structures here that are not shown are small nerves that give us sensation, vessels that are very close to the nerves, veins, arteries. So veins are what take blood out and go back towards the heart. Arteries are what brings oxygenated blood to the tissues. And then you have this blue structure here is supposed to symbolize some of the glands that we have that provide lubrication to the vaginal lining. This is one as well. So lots of stuff in the vulva. Now, the main things that we have control over is a system called the somatic nervous system. So we have control over this, meaning we could practice to make it better. So the 3 tricks that the vulva can do are these. And then I'm going to go into a little depth of each. Number 1, the vulva can respond to all sorts of sensation to increase your pleasure experience or your experience. And that can happen even if you don't feel like you have much sensation down there. Number 2, the muscles can contract differently to add variety of, let's say if we're talking orgasm, to add variety to your orgasm library. Even if you think or you've been told that your muscles are weak or too tight or too long. And number 3, and this is not the only thing, but these are the 3 I'm going to hit today. Your muscles can adjust in size, regardless if you've had kids. And then if you've had kids or you're pregnant, these muscles can adjust in size before and after childbirth. And that they can adjust regardless, even if you've had multiple kids. So let's hit the first one. Your vulva can respond to all sorts of sensations to maximize, to change your pleasure experience, even if you feel like you don't have a lot of sensation down there. And so let me tell you a quick story about my own experience. And the whole point of this here is your body I want you to get that you're adaptable. For me, I felt like I had no sensation down there except itchiness. I was so itchy at the perineal body area. And this is going on for years, and I had gotten ruled out. Like I didn't have even a low-level infection, like a yeast infection or the different bacterial infections, but like at low levels. None of them. But I was so itchy. But the problem was I was so tight down there, and I never went down there. Really never. I only just beat the crap out of my body. Not literally, but like with working out. And so I was always getting really stiff, but never coming down, never getting into that meditative, relax, recover, restore stage. So it was always in this like heightened stage. And so it got really tight. And so the nerves and the muscle tissues, and it was all restricted. There wasn't a lot of good blood flow. So, of course, my sensation wasn't that great. And then I started taking care of it. I started recovering and doing things that would improve the blood flow down there. And I can respond to all sorts of sensations. But the thing was, it just didn't happen. Even, I mean, PT helped, but like I had to have just an active role myself. Like I had to explore, I did remove all of the beliefs that I had, and I had to explore the different sensations, vibration, temperature changes, light touch, different types of pressures, different locations. So our areas that were highly sensitive, of course, we all know is the clitoral area, and then the other areas can be the labial areas, and then also I'm a medical provider. I'm just telling you like it is. The area around the anus is really sensitive. So the whole point here is you got to practice, and you got to have a clear mind and not have these like beliefs going into it, because you're basically blocking your ability to learn. It's like you going to college and hating what you're learning, and so you're just like, your brain's just like, no, I'm not open to this. So you have the ability, even if you don't have a lot of sensation, even if you have a lot of sensation, you can reverse that training. But you got to practice, and you have to have the right mental space while you're practicing, and you have to be consistent. It can't be just once every so often. It has to be daily, most days of the week, until you see the changes, and then you get on a maintenance schedule. Number 2, the muscles can contract differently to add variety to, say, let's say, your orgasm library. And that can happen regardless if you're weak, you're strong, you're tight, your muscles are too lengthened. And even if you've only been able to have one type of orgasm before. So again, I'm going to use myself as an example. I only experienced one type of orgasm for the majority of my life, and that was same position, external clitoral stimulation. And I didn't have much flexibility of what positions I could reproduce that in. And so I was like, for a long time, just feeling sorry for myself and like saying, this is the way it is, even as a healthcare provider. I mean, I did, when we treat ourselves, we're terrible. Just saying. But when we treat other people, we're a lot better. So I was challenged by someone who asked me what I liked, and I didn't know what I liked because I didn't go there. So that kicked me in the butt, because I started feeling like a fraud for a while, being that I was helping people and I wouldn't do it myself, basically saying I didn't believe in my product. And I went on this self-exploration journey. And what I want you guys to realize is, like, an orgasm is kind of like a snatch with a barbell. It's a skill. And here's why it's a skill. Yeah, our body's like meant to do that. However, we get so out of touch with our beliefs and our physical practices, our habits, that it kind of goes Latin in our brain. So we have to revisit that and re-practice that. Just like we would this complex movement of snatch. Basically, you take a barbell from the ground and you throw it over your head in the most unstable position that your shoulders can get in. So what I did is I had a pleasure practice fortunately I knew the anatomy, I knew what it did, so I could skip that part. But yeah, to be clear, orgasm was not the goal. But I knew that, just like the perfect snatch. My goal is not to hit the perfect snatch every time, because that's unrealistic. So your goal to have an orgasm every time you're in a pleasure practice, whether it's with yourself or with someone else, is not realistic. The goal, though, is you have to practice in different positions. On your stomach, hands and knees. Whatever position that you so desire, you can make it happen. It's just it's a whole change in what you think, your perception about it, and stripping away your beliefs, or first understanding where your beliefs around this stuff came from, and then replacing those beliefs with something that is more meaningful to your life. So you practice it, you put what you practice with the sensations as you practice this part, and then you would be amazed what you will experience. And the other parts of it is learning how to contract these muscles differently. So this is why I hate the word Kegel. Kegels are the worst. It's like, hey guys, I'm going to go strengthen my hamstrings. It's so ridiculous. A Kegel is a pelvic floor muscle contraction. Well, there's different ways to contract your pelvic floor. You can contract it in standing, hands and knees, sitting. You can do a slow contraction and a hold, or you can do quick contractions with no hold. You can do slow let goes, like that's called an eccentric contraction. It's not allowing your elbow to just drop down once you do a bicep curl. It's controlling it down. There's types where you coordinate with breathing and there are so many things that you can do from a training and orgasm perspective when you have control of these muscles. This is so fun to teach people how to do this. Like, not the orgasm part. It's fun to hear about their stories, but teach people how to use these muscles differently. It's crazy. They're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. I was doing it this way every time. So if you think about it, like if you think about how it's just like anything else, if you don't exercise, I don't know why you're in this group. It says for female athletes and active women. So a lot of the analogies I use I use exercise because it's exercise. But it like hamstrings, for example, a hamstring exercise, there can be so many different types. So if you think about training your pelvic floor that way, it's less taboo and less like black box. Okay, third. So you got to practice that as well. Like you can't just every once in a while pleasure practice or self-exploration. You have to be consistent, build a habit, and be kind to yourself. Be the best student you can be and strip away all the crap that you learn from other people, the beliefs that people projected onto you, the beliefs that religion projected onto you. If it's not serving your health, forget it. Number 3, adjust your pelvic floor can adjust size, whether or not you've had kids. And if you've had kids, you can adjust size regardless if you've had one kid or multiple kids. And the whole point of that, guys, is that you're not stuck where you are currently. Regardless of what you think you are or what you've been told, you're not stuck where you are. Unless that is the story that you're telling yourself, whether you're saying you're not, whether that's the story to your core that you believe. And you can't take a codependent approach, like fix me to someone else. You have to take your healing into your own hands and do it in the appropriate way. Story to this. How do I know this? Well, I mean, I experienced this myself. I was this tight ball of stiffness. And I mean, after I put into practice a healthy recovery practice, a self-exploration practice, self-pleasure practice, I mean, it's amazing what I have experienced. But then from a patient care perspective, I've had people, they've come to see me after they've had 3 kids. One person comes to mind. She's had 3 kids. It's been 2 years. And the first time I examined her pelvic floor, I was I felt significant amount of just stiffness and scar tissue. The tissue was just all kind of like knotted up. And it just I had a longer session and I spent almost the whole session on working on this. And you'd be amazed, just one session of nurturing tissue that needed nurtured, how much change can happen that quickly. And then you add consistent practice and it's literally amazing what you can experience. But when it comes to the pelvic floor, it's not you get one of these hypervolts and you go digging into the pelvic floor. You don't go grabbing one of those dilators or whatever and ramming your pelvic floor. It's gentle. These muscles are tiny. Picture a pencil eraser, even smaller than that. Like these trigger points are little. And small trigger points and small bands of scar tissue can really impact mobility. But when it comes to childbirth, I mean, there's a lot of tissue. If you go into childbirth and you're not in shape, the chances of scar tissue, I believe, at least from my experience, your muscles aren't necessarily in shape as they would if you were more fit going into childbirth. So the healing and like the tissue quality is, I mean, it's stiff. So you got to work through the stiffness and then fitness those tissues up. But yeah, I mean, the from the processes our bodies can implement, from hormones to rebuild and repair, it's amazing what can happen. Our pelvic floor is supposed to be that adaptable, but it only can be in the right setting. Like if you eat like crap, if you don't sleep, if you're dehydrated, if you're cutting too much weight too quickly postpartum, it's going to be harder. I could tell you that it's going to be harder, and you might not experience that right away, but it'll catch up. But yeah, I mean, it just takes consistency. It takes the right environment, and you'd be amazed the changes you will experience. So, in summary, I mean, the things that your vulva can do, some might call them tricks, some might call them treats, like the orgasms, but really it's just function that every woman should have. And they're not really tricks. They're just, when you nurture your body, it works for you. It doesn't swear at you, it doesn't curse at you, but if you don't nurture your body, it will somehow. I can tell you that. And I can tell you also from a former pelvic pain sufferer, this stuff works. But you've got to get past this. You've got to get past the traditional culture and medicine. And you got to get over expecting people to fix you, because we don't know what goes on here. We don't know your trauma. So what's holding you back? If any questions come up, Sarah, I will send you a message after I get off the live. So in summary, you guys, you have a massive amounts of sensation capacity, or you can take down the sensation if you're I have too much sensation. You have a lot of contraction capacity, and you have a lot of length capacity. It takes consistency, it takes self-care, it's self-nurture, it takes healthy mindset. But remember that the more you have control over your vulva, the easier it is going to think, that pull pretty as pretty does. Like, it's easier to love yourself regardless of what you look like. And remember, everyone's different. There's no perfect vulva. Every vulva is different. It's like a face. And I have something really exciting coming up. I've been planning this challenge. It's called the Pelvic Floor Mobility Challenge. And trying to figure out how many days it's going to be, what's going to be included. Well, I can tell you there's going to be a lot of awesome stuff that's included. You're not going to want to miss it. It's a way that you guys could learn, be indoctrinated in the world of the crazy vagina doc without having to go through the massive commitment of some of my online courses. I've had this group of ladies that have been testing stuff out for me, and the content, the trainings are amazing, but it's a lot. So trying to figure out how to meet everyone where they are, and I think this challenge is just what it is, just the thing. So keep coming on the lives so you can hear about them. If you have questions, post them onto the group. Let's get this group talking. This is the whole point of this group, is to get people talking about this stuff. I share you guys. People probably think I'm crazy. I am. But it's a good crazy. We all need to be our own kind of crazy. And, I lived in shame for years, and I just feel so free now. And as I have taken off the shame, man, I mean, my healing was 10x in speed. And so I share my story to show you guys that you're not alone. And then I realize you guys haven't gone through doctoral training, and let me tell you that doctoral training doesn't typically include, the trainings you need to do what I do. I went through a lot additional training for that. You don't have to do that. I've failed so many times of like executing programs, working with people where it just didn't work, regardless of how good the material was. And so many failures have taught me ways to really get results for people. So keep on the lookout for the challenge. It's coming soon. It's going to be a short window of time where you can join. So I'm going to just keep putting that in your ear. But I hope that you got something out of this. And I will see you on Thursday around the same time. I am taking my friend to the airport, so it might be a little bit later. But this was Real Talk with a Vagina Doc. Next time, I'm going to talk about common stretching errors when people are stretching their pelvic floor. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Have a wonderful Tuesday.